Hi there and welcome to this week's lesson. So this is unfortunately the last week of my recent online class, Develop Your Drawing. And so well done for all of those that managed to stick with it. If you're catching up with this at some time in the future, then you can check out my playlists. I've got all the lessons available for you. So it's been a really enjoyable course, and I've seen some great work from all of my students. And as I've said throughout, all of the lessons that we've done here, you can go over and over and over them, and you will learn new things, and they will give you inspiration to basically go and do some more drawing. So one of the things I said at the beginning of the course was that really to develop as an artist, it's really about practice. And in order to practice, you have to feel inspired and motivated. And if you go back to my very first week of my last course, I talked about this very point, motivation. And that's where art classes and watching stuff on YouTube can really help you. You can get some ideas, and anything that gets you to get your sketchbook open is worth watching. Anyway, so what we're going to have a look at this week is I'm going to just talk. I was reading over this book, The Creative License by Danny Gregory, and I thought it was a really nice way to end the course, which was just basically go back to the beginning and talk a little bit about journaling as sort of sketchbook, the combination of sketchbook and journal. So I was talking about how if I could encourage my students to basically do some drawing every day, then their progress would be amplified, sort of tenfold. And so I think in here he's got some really nice ideas about how to start to journal in your sketchbook. So we're talking here specifically about combining text with your drawings, okay? And approaching your sketchbook like a journal. So you are making notes, you might be sort of reflecting or talking about things that have happened to you, or maybe stories. And you're combining the written word and text with your images. Okay, so often people can feel a bit precious about their drawings and not want to sort of write on them. But actually in here, and if you look at a lot of contemporary illustration, you will see this interplay between text and images. So it not only adds notes and interest, so you can read over it, years later and get a snapshot into what you were doing. But the text itself can actually provide a nice graphic element. So I've done a couple of demonstrations for you, really just to sort of give you the idea, some suggestions about the sorts of things you might consider. And what I'd like you to do this week is to again get your sketchbook out and just go back to this idea of little and often. Okay, maybe a couple of sketches a day, but try to write a few notes. Write the sort of notes that might be interesting to you in years to come. What did you watch on TV? What books were you reading? Where did you go? You can do your sketches from memory, or you can do them from photographs on your phone, or in an ideal world, you can take your sketchbook and record life as it unfolds in front of you. Okay, so we're going to go over, have a look at the sketches I've done, and I'll talk you through them, and we'll see how we go. Okay, so here we are over at the sketchbook, and I've got my watercolours out. So these are just the sorts of things you might like to have a go at. Okay, so every time, well, most days when I get up in the morning, I like to meditate. So this is something I've been doing for years now, and I enjoy doing it. I did have a bit of a lapse over lockdown. So as it's something I do in the morning, you probably have your own sort of morning routine. Well, maybe there's something in your morning routine that you could use to create a little a drawing or a study. Anyway, I thought it might be a nice way to get the ball rolling. So I've got a little Buddha statue that I have, and I thought I'd do a quick sketch of him. So as you can see, I'm now working. This is actually I'm really overdoing doing the course actually, and doing these sketchbook exercises. I've really come to enjoy getting the little set of watercolours out and using that to sort of develop my sketches. So I'm using a sort of fine liner pen here, and I'm drawing in, you might recognize this as something like continuous line and sort of contour drawing. So not too much, no real construction, just really sort of eyeballing it and trying to get it right first time. But for these sorts of sketches, you know, and as you, if you do ever pick up the Danny Gregory book, you know, he's talking about this sort of rather loose, relaxed style of drawing. And again, you're just trying to have fun, really. So this was the attitude I took to doing these little demo sketches for you. So that's a little sort of a little drawing. Now with those fine liner pens, they're completely water resistant, so there's no problem going straight in with the watercolours. Some of my other pens use ink that's water soluble, and so you don't get quite such clean colour. And again, nothing particularly sort of dramatic here, just putting a general wash in just to make an interesting page. So as I say, the exercise here is to incorporate text. So this is like my first sort of study. So the text is designed to sort of fill up the page and add interest. You can see I'm doing a little bit of wet in wet there. I'm just dropping some colour in. Okay, so here I've picked up a fountain pen and I'm just writing. Okay, so this is as if I was doing this as a page. And so again, I'm not really thinking about it a great deal, but I'm just sort of using my sketchbook as a way to journal. So in this case, I'm just making a note that I got up and I meditated, if that was the case. Okay, so the lettering I'm doing there again is fairly loose. You know, everyone has their own handwriting. In the same way, I'm sure you will find different lettering styles that suit your personality and temperament. Obviously, the more you do, the easier they will come to you. You're sort of trying to get sort of legibility. But there's lots of, again, lots of great YouTube videos. It's for some of those, you know, for some of you, you might be interested in looking at calligraphy, and just handwriting in general it's such an integral part of illustration that it's you know, something really well worth looking at. Certainly something I wouldn't claim to be an expert. So I'm just using a combination of lettering styles and my own handwriting. But hopefully you can see now that makes for an interesting page. Now I made a little note there, meditated, calm, let's see, relaxed, and I think I put thoughts, or planning thoughts. Okay, so that made me think, and that actually, I thought, well, I'll put the blue sky behind the Buddha there, and the clouds represent thoughts passing by. So again, you know, when you're working on these pages, you're trying to open up to sort of intuitive ideas, where to place the text, how to develop the page. And so you're just allowing things to sort of develop sort of organically. And of course, the whole point with these sorts of pages is, you know, it's not a case of getting it right. It's just a case of just trying to enjoy yourself, play with your materials, and just see what happens. But yeah, bringing in some text is a great fun and great way to make for a good page. So there's the first one. Now, I could probably have spent longer on that page. So I say, once you've done a study and you've got some text on there, and you're just really trying to develop, once you've got your elements in there, you then try and develop the page. So, having meditated, probably the next thing I would do is have a cup of tea. And so I thought I would do a quick study of a cup of tea. And this time I'm using the approach of watercolours without doing the initial drawing. It can be quite fun to do. It's a bit more challenging, but it has its own, it sort of brings the watercolours to life a bit more, I think. So, and as you can see, I've used the reference on my phone there, so you can see what I'm using. And these are the sorts of things, you know, as I was saying at the very beginning of my course, my last course on motivation, this is the sort of thing, you know, I mean, I say you, but myself as well. You know, it's a great thing just to get into the habit of, you know, sketching a little bit every day. And, you know, don't worry too much about whether your subject is dramatic or interesting. Actually, studying life and recording it in a sketchbook will tend to make it interesting. Okay, so there I've added in my graphic element with some lettering, cup of tea, not particularly imaginative, but there you go. And as you can see, it just changes the nature of the drawing somewhat. It becomes interesting, you know, there's something to read. It's almost like a poster, and it takes on a more perhaps illustrative quality. And as a little side note, again, I've really enjoyed using watercolours in the last sort of month or so. So I'd feel almost at a loss without them. In fact, I'm looking forward to when lockdown is completely finished, I can get back to doing some life drawing, is to do a bit more watercolours there. Okay, so what do we put there? Second study of the day, quick study of a cup of tea. Must go and buy some more milk. So again, this is the idea he talks in here of, you know, again, it's like free association, using your sketchbook almost to doodle, to make notes, you know, to-do lists, little things like that. You know, just allow it to emerge, and just any excuse really to get a bit of text on there. And so here I just wrote lettering. So I did at one point look at graffiti art, which again, if you look at good graffiti, it really has a lot of its roots in calligraphy and you know, just lettering generally. But understanding a little bit about lettering is a great, you know, it's a great thing to learn. My handwriting's not particularly great, but there's something very attractive about good handwriting. But as you'll find with a lot of these sort of, even in the Danny Gregory book, actually, you know, handwriting doesn't have to be perfect to make it graphically interesting. Okay, and then next study. So this is, again, this sort of relates to the idea of what shall I draw? And I say what we're looking to do is we're sort of trying to document our lives. Again, this is the idea of the journal. So we're looking for something that is going on around us. So I don't know at what point you might work out who this is, but it relates to the news last week. And I think at one point I watched this chap being questioned, and made for very interesting television, certainly some of it. And again, it's just something that's very present. Now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, who knows, you know, how history will write, you know, our current experience. But don't, you know, record what's going on, you know, just pay attention to the world around you, record what's going on, and it will, have no doubt, it will become interesting when people look back on it in years to come. So yeah, drawing faces, famous people, people in the news, you know, pick up your newspaper, do sketches from the newspaper, all of those things will make for good subjects. So here I'm incorporating more text. That probably tells you who it is. And as you can see, I'm trying to incorporate text in a way that relates to my imagery. So either drawing round it, behind it. So it's not just a case of like adding notes. I'm trying to really add sort of graphic sort of qualities to it. So here it looks a bit like a, I thought afterwards maybe it looks a bit like a comic book cover or something like that. But yeah, certainly the more you do of it, the more you will get a feel for how to incorporate text. But the point is, don't be too timid with it. You know, certainly your handwriting will be interesting, and you know, include your handwriting, write notes. You know, fill up pages with writing, but you know, play around with your lettering, scale, size. You know, look at different fonts. All those sorts of things will add interest, and they tend to affect the mood of a drawing. So here doing a bit of wet in wet. So it's a very good technique, by the way, for watercolours. Lay in a base colour of your face whilst it's wet, drop in your shadows, and you could pull out some highlights at some point with a cloth, but here I've just really got a base colour and I'm adding in my shadows. So it's not the best portrait in the world, but it's not too bad. Just to really illustrate the sorts of things you might have a go at. And again, the exercise here isn't really in portraiture. It's more about just documenting, you know, what's going on in the world. That's the attitude to adopt. So adding a little bit more colour there. Certainly there are some very good cartoon. I mean, you know, I say this isn't really a caricature. I just sort of found the face and then just had a go at drawing it. But, you know, look at caricaturists, look at cartoonists in the newspaper. You know, there's some great artists working at the moment, you know, whose work you could look at and sort of think about how they create their images. And you can see there I'm playing with sort of tonal values using the black. It's a really nice technique. Use a very strong dark to make lighter elements pop out. So I'm just incorporating a bit of that there. So that's these. I mean, this is a little bit like the sorts of pages I might have done in my sketchbook when I was doing my A-levels or back at college or something like that. And I think then I would have been more inclined to incorporate text than I am now. But yeah, a little bit of notes. So there I am just writing about what I was watching at the time. And I think there I just double checked on the spelling, as I thought if you're all going to watch it I better make sure I spell committee correctly. So there we go. So again, I'm having to sort of go on a bit, perhaps a bit faster than I might normally. But as I say, once you get going, you could just go back into a drawing like that and just work into it over and over. Okay, and then last study. So this is, again, skimming through the Danny Gregory book. He actually, at some point, you actually seek out opportunities to include text. So you look for things. So in this case, I picked all the books that was stacked up on my windowsill at the moment, which I brought back from my studio and I've been using to give me ideas for the course and sort of dipping into. And I'm just like writing those all down, trying to get the... I wasn't particularly interested in trying to get all the lettering correct and the actual layout correct, but I thought it'd be just nice to just write down all those books and get some sense of them lying one on top of the other. So as you can see, this is, again, this is like the contour drawing approach. So I love this idea that, you know, when we create sketchbooks like this, we are basically creating almost like a little time capsule. We're sort of making a note. I mean, looking at other artists and their old sketchbooks, it's very interesting. And actually, often what can be, you know, more interesting sometimes than the drawings is like when you see at the back of the page, you see little notes written, and they're little windows into the past. So that's why pages like this, you know, their value comes really not so much in, you know, today, but they're sort of, again, they're snapshots into your life. That's how you should think about them. So try to, you know, pour as much information in there as you can, and they will no doubt be very interesting to look back on in years to come. So there we are. So again, I've got this Chinese sort of brush pen that Pentel, I think, make, and it gives a nice, so you can see you've got variety of text now, the thinner line and then the thicker line. So there we go, drawing books, Ed's online art classes lockdown 2020-21. I thought that would be a nice way to bring the series to a close. Yeah, I've really enjoyed doing these online classes, and it's created a nice body of work, I think. You know, again, uploading these videos to YouTube, they're going to be available for all of my students, and you're welcome to, you know, revisit them again and again as necessary. And I'm sure I will look back at them in years to come, and you know, just be interested to see like whether I've moved on or developed or my ideas have changed. But yes, it's been a really excellent sort of project over the last few months. So that's what I would like you to have a go at this week. Try to create a little sort of snapshot into your life at the moment, and you can send those in to me on Friday and we'll have a look. Anyway, so thanks a lot for that, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers, bye.